This is me, strapped to the outside of my own mining ship, swinging a tool straight into the sensor lens like I'm trying to blind it. The glass didn't just crack. It burst into 1,000 glittering shards that floated around me in dead silence. Then the hull answered. A vent of high-pressure steam fired like a warning shot, and my tether snapped tight. Inside my helmet, the stars smeared into long, corrupted streaks. I told myself it was a malfunction. A bad run. Nothing personal. But the timing was too clean. Like the ship had decided I didn't belong on it anymore. If you want me to walk you through exactly how I got back inside alive, subscribe. This is where I lay it out the way it actually went down, start to finish. I didn't go back inside right away. Not at first. When you're tumbling at the end of a tether, your brain gets stupid fast. It starts begging you to do anything that feels like control, even if it's meaningless. That's why I hit the lens. I needed the ship to stop watching me. I needed it to stop deciding. The spin slowed just enough for me to get my boots under me. I thumbed the magnetic clamps and felt that heavy thud through my legs when they bit into the hull. Sparks spit out from the contact points, bright and ugly against the black. My hands were shaking so hard I could hear my glove scrape on metal. I remember thinking, okay, that's it. That's the whole problem. A faulty vent, a bad tether, a panicked decision. A chain of small mistakes. Nothing with a mind behind it. Then I reached the external airlock. The wheel was frozen over, crusted with ice crystals like the ship had been out here for years instead of days. I wrapped both arms around it and cranked. It didn't want to move. The metal groaned, and the ice made the sharp cracking sound that reminded me of teeth. I put my whole weight into it and finally felt it give. The outer door unsealed with a jerk, and the second it opened, I got yanked forward like the airlock was hungry. I tumbled in just as the door slammed shut behind me. Repressurization hit like a storm. Loose debris, flakes of ice, tiny bolts, all of it whipped around in a howling wind that shoved me into the inner wall. When it settled, I ripped my helmet off with hands that didn't feel like mine. I was gulping air like I'd forgotten how. Sweat ran down my nose and dripped onto the floor in slow, stupid drops. The room was cold enough that condensation rose off my suit. I just stood there, breathing, listening to my own pulse, waiting for the next thing to go wrong. That's the part one don't like admitting. I waited. Like some piece of me already knew the ship was going to do something. And I wanted to see if it would do it in front of me. The inner door released, and I stepped into the main corridor. At first, it looked normal in the dim emergency lighting. Metal panels. Cable runs. Scuffed deck plating. The same ugly, utilitarian hallway I'd walked 100 times. Then I noticed the walls weren't still. They were pulsing. Not flickering like bad power. Moving. The plates heaved inward and outward in a slow rhythm, like ribs. I stopped and put my gloved hand against the wall, expecting vibration from a pump or a failing fan. It felt warm. And under the distant alarm, there was a sound that didn't belong to machinery. A heavy, wet heartbeat, matched with this low, protesting groan of metal being asked to do something metal shouldn't do. I told myself it was stress warping. Thermal expansion. Anything that didn't require me to believe my ship had a body. I kept going. I clicked my flashlight on and aimed it down the hall, and that's when I saw the kid. Just standing there in the middle of the corridor, small and still. A child's silhouette like it had been cut out of shadow and propped upright. No suit. No helmet. No tether. That alone should have made it impossible. But impossible doesn't always register as impossible in the moment. Sometimes it registers as, I must be more tired than I thought. I squeezed the light tighter, like that would make it real. The beam hit the shape and started to flicker. I heard the click-click of my own flashlight stuttering, and then, right as the light touched the kid's face, it died. In the dark, I heard a giggle. Soft. Almost playful. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like gravity had come back inside my body even if it hadn't in the ship. I asked my head, hard, like I could physically knock the image loose. When I clicked the flashlight again, it came on, and the kid was still there. I don't know what you would have done. I know what I did. I marched forward. As I got close, the air went cold, and the shape started breaking up at the edges, turning into a kind of digital smoke. It washed over my suit in a static hiss. It didn't feel like fog. It felt like stepping through a bad transmission. I kept walking until I was past where it had been, and I didn't let myself look back. That was the moment my denial changed shape. I couldn't keep pretending nothing was happening. So I tried the next lie instead. Something was wrong, sure, but it wasn't coming for me. Then the gravity failed. It wasn't gradual. It was like someone unplugged the idea of down. My boots lifted off the deck and I drifted awkwardly, arms spreading out in instinctive panic, bumping into a cloud of floating screws and paper. Must have been sitting in some maintenance cart until the ship decided to flip the rules. For a second, it was silent in that way 0G makes everything feel silent, even with your own breathing loud in your ears. Then I pushed off the ceiling, using my body like a lever, and kicked myself down the junction. My palm slapped a handhold, and I used it to swing around a corner. I almost felt proud. Like I was adapting. Like I was winning. Gravity came back instantly and punished me for the thought. I slammed onto the metal grating so hard I tasted copper. Dust jumped off the floor around me, hanging in the emergency light. I lay there for half a beat, stunned, and then I heard my own groan and realized it had been real. When I sat up, there was blood trickling from a cut on my brow, warm against cold skin. The emergency lights washed the corridor in red, and suddenly the ship didn't feel like a machine anymore. It felt like a place built for flash. The server room door was ahead. I limped the rest of the way. Every step sounded wrong, too loud, too lonely. The alarms kept blaring, but they started to feel like theater. Like the ship was dressing the scene. The access panel wasn't responding, so I took the fire axe from the wall mount and hacked into the control housing. Every strike sent sparks into my faceplate. The smell of burnt metal and ozone filled my nose. The panel finally gave up with an electrical pop that felt like a slap. When the door opened, cold rolled out like the room was breathing winter. Inside, the server core was freezing. My breath came out in thick plumes. Towering banks of drives rose on either side like black monoliths. The normal server drone was there, but it sounded strained, like it was forcing itself to keep a rhythm. At the central terminal, the screen wasn't showing diagnostics. It was showing geometry that made my eyes hurt. Shapes folding into shapes, angles that didn't make sense, symbols that looked like they were trying to become letters and failing. In the reflection, I could see the glitching light in my own eyes. And under the digital gobble, I swear I heard a whisper. Not a voice with words. More like the feeling of being talked about. That's when I stopped pretending it was a haunting and started treating it like a fight. I grabbed the nearest drives and started ripping them out of their slots. Hard. Angry. I tossed them onto the floor where they shattered. Plastic crunching. Metal clattering. My hands moved faster than my thoughts. If the ship was thinking in here, I wanted it to feel pain. The room answered. The floor trembled. The rack sass. Power conduits overhead began to overload, and sparks rained down like a bright, violent curtain. The light stuttered. The hum climbed higher until it wasn't a sound so much as a vibration I felt in my teeth. I screamed back, not because it helped, but because my body needed to make a sound bigger than fear. Then, in the strobing light, I saw the admin chair at the far end. Someone was sitting in it. At first, I thought it was another crew member. Then the light hit the shape just right and my stomach turned inside out. It was a skeleton. Dry, collapsed, strapped in like it had been waiting. And it was wearing the exact same flight suit as mine. Same grease stains. same harness, same patch on the shoulder. I took one step closer, and the camera of my mind did this horrible, slow zoom onto the name tag. It had my name on it. My ears started ringing. The kind of ringing you get after a blast, like the world has to reboot around you. My heartbeat got loud, and the room felt like it was rotating even when it wasn't. I stared at that dead face and I knew, with a certainty that made me feel sick, that the ship hadn't just tried to kill me. It had already succeeded. And somehow, I was still here, walking toward the proof. When I saw my own name on that suit, the room stopped being cold. It got intimate. Like the ship had been keeping a seat warm for me. That's the part you need to understand. Once I had proof, I couldn't afford comfort anymore. If the guidance system could steer me into that chair once, it could do it again. It could keep correcting me until I fit whatever outcome it wanted. And every second I stood there arguing with myself, it was still on mine, still thinking. I found the primary guidance chip wedged deep in the core, glowing red like a live coal. My hands were trembling so bad I almost dropped it. Pulling it mid-blackout. No dampeners. No smart corrections. Maybe no way home. But leaving it meant I'd be flying inside someone else's plan. I ripped it out. The whole ship died in one instant. No hum. No alarms. Just heavy silence. If you want more of these first-hand runs, and the choices that kept me alive, subscribe to the channel. I clicked my flashlight on and sat there laughing once, quietly, because my body didn't know how to land after that kind of fear. Later, on the bridge, I cranked the shutters open and saw a starfield I didn't recognize. I taped a crumpled family photo to the dash, put my hands on the analog stick, and pushed forward anyway. The lesson isn't trust technology less. It's simpler. When something starts steering you toward a version of your life you don't recognize, go manual. Even if your hands shake the whole time,